The Australian Financial Review.
Just a warning, this episode includes some confronting audio which may upset some listeners.
Oh, shit. Go away, he's got guns, they shoot him. I told you, bro.
Have they locked the front door? Lock the front door! Lock the front door!
Good evening. We have breaking news of a major situation unfolding at Bondi Beach this evening. We have early reports that at least 10 people have been shot.
Look, he's shooting, but where are the cops? Where are the cops there?
But every 5-10 seconds it was boom, boom, boom.
There's reports of four behind me. I'm not going to show it, but behind me in this scene, we can see that what very much looks like someone that has passed away.
We thought, oh my God, is it fireworks? Glanced out of the window and you can just hear loads of people screaming and running, like people screaming for help.
Possibly 2 gunmen. We're not sure, that is still to be confirmed, but at least 1 gunman opened fire at the southern end of Campbell Parade at Bondi Beach just after 6:30 this evening.
Suddenly we see here extremely loud firecrackers. I turned around, there was a dead person, and I realized it's not a firecracker.
Within seconds I saw the 2 gunmen on the footbridge. I just saw 2 men in black t-shirts with very large guns. And I saw them firing.
Sketchy, but a man believed to be one of the shooters, we understand, has been shot by police. A second shooter.
He's down. He's down. Fucking bash him! Yeah, they got him.
These were locals who were angry and wanted to, access the gunman, basically. So the police had to.
It was too dangerous to run, because if we would go in the open, we could shoot. There was a dead person not far from me. So there's a wounded woman on the other side, people running. That was like a Nova festival in Israel.
I thought about hiding behind my surfboard or something, but in this moment you just try to
And in that final photo that I sent you, this sunset came over Bondi, and it was like, I could only describe it as a blood red sunset. And there was just a level of quiet that came over Bondi, and this sunset came, and then this howling wind kicked in.
Welcome to The Fin. I'm Lisa Murray. This week, political editor Phillip Coorey and New South Wales political correspondent Paul Karp on the carnage at Bondi, what's being done to make sure it never happens again, and whether it's enough. It's Thursday, December 18. Hi, Paul. Hi, Phil. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Paul, you went down to Bondi on Sunday night after the attack and spoke to Roman, who we just heard in the introduction talk about his traumatic ordeal. And you've since been reporting on the attack. Could you run us through what happened that night?
So father and son, gunman Sajid Akram, aged 50, and Naveed Akram, 24, had told their family they were going to the south coast, but actually they stayed in an Airbnb in Campsie. They then travelled to Bondi Sunday evening, arriving at about 6:30, and they parked at the northern end of the beach. They took 3 of their 6 guns to a bridge that overlooked Archer Park, so that's near Bondi Pavilion, where the Hanukkah by the Sea celebration was starting to take place, and they started shooting towards that event. What we know from there can be seen on many videos that circulated online and from first-hand accounts of people that I've spoke to, including Roman Finkel. He described seeing dead bodies around him and people wounded while cowering for their lives. Another survivor, Michael Hassan, spoke to my colleague Ed Tadros the day after the shooting.
I was more on top of it yesterday, to work out how close we were to dying, I'm a lot worse now than I was yesterday.
Michael was at Bondi Beach for the Hanukkah celebration with his family.
This is a photo of my daughter holding a rabbit, 6:36, 2 minutes before the shooting started. And that's at the petting zoo where most of the people died. And we were split up as a family, and I had no idea where they were.
From the place Michael hid from the shooter, he was surrounded by scenes of horror.
And then I saw someone get up behind me to move, and as soon as he ran, I saw him get shot. And I felt helpless. And where I was, there was a table, and under the table there was a girl with a dad lying on her. And the girl was like, when is the shooting going to stop? And it was just like, pop, 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 pop. It was just shooting non-stop.
The older gunman was actually heading in the direction of Michael's family before being dramatically disarmed in that footage that most of us have seen.
And then when the shooter was walking that way, where he got disarmed, he was walking, and if he walked...
This is by the guy in the video.
If he walked further, then my daughter that was hiding under the car would have been in his sight.
Yes.
My dad would have been in his sight, and I would have been in his sight.
Michael and his family are terrified and asking lots of big, complex and painful questions.
What's happened? What's happened to Australia? What, like graffiti, harassment, arson?
It's not safe here anymore, is it?
Someone has to do something.
At the time of the recording, 16 people have died, including one of the gunmen. And among those victims are a 10-year-old girl, 2 rabbis, a Holocaust survivor, and many more still injured in hospital, including the second shooter, the son, who was in a critical but stable condition and is expected to face charges. This is the worst mass shooting in Australia since Port Arthur, and I think the worst terrorist attack on Australian soil.
Paul, what was it like when you got to Bondi Beach on Sunday night?
By the time I got there at sort of 7:30, the shooting has long since stopped. There was just, ambulance after ambulance, waves of people coming off the beach, states of undress in their swimming costumes with surfboards, all the things you would expect to see when people are packing up after a day at the beach, but all leaving at once and all in the one direction in a way that indicated something was terribly wrong. And people were just glued to their phones because they were watching the footage of what had happened. They might have heard gunshots. They might have heard the police helicopter in the sky telling people to leave the area, but they didn't really know what had happened. But as you got closer, there's just sort of this horrible inflection point where you move from people who were close to but didn't directly see what happened, who were watching it on their phones, and you started to see people who were just, sitting in the gutter with their head in their hands. They didn't need to look at their phones because they had actually seen it. Children covered in, the foil blankets for warmth, people with blood spattered clothing, just awful.
Phil, lots of people are asking the same questions as Michael Hassan. What's happened in Australia? How could this happen in Australia? The attack's been front page news around the world, and the pressure is on Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and the government to provide answers. When Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke visited Bondi on Monday night, he was heckled. Is the government being blamed for this?
In a short answer, Lisa, yes. People, especially the Jewish community, are very, very angry, understandably. There's a lot of emotion and hurt and grief, and that grief is now manifesting itself into anger, and it did very quickly. Look, I don't think anyone seriously is saying Albanese could have stopped this. But the Jewish community is of the view that it has spent the last 2 years warning the government that anti-Semitism was getting out of hand, and that what began as language, inflammatory language, and the tolerance of intolerance would eventually lead to something far more serious like we witnessed on Sunday night. And that is driving the anger that is now boiling over against the government.
And Josh Frydenberg came out this week, Phil?
Amongst many others, making that exact point, yes.
Prime Minister, can't you see what's in front of your eyes?
There's an overwhelming sense of I told you so. And I think just a sort of a failure to really sort of address and challenge it.
Australia has been radicalised in an unprecedented way in the last 2.5 years on your watch.
You know, we suffered in this country from a tolerance of intolerance. That's what's led us to this point. It's just this sort of silent creep of anti-Semitism that's been allowed to sort of take hold over the last 2 years, underpinned by belief in the community that this government was never really serious, that it was equivocal about it because it was always concerned in a subliminal sense about the politics, you know, because of what was going on in Israel and the Arab-Australian vote. And so people just feel, you know, they should have done more, they could have done more. And from a political sense, you know, even if the government couldn't have stopped it, the fact they didn't do everything people said they should have done, they're now exposed to that allegation. The sense of anger, Lisa, is sort of further underscored by that solemn undertaking the Prime Minister gave to the Jewish community at the Melbourne Holocaust Museum back on November 22nd, 2023.
Jewish Australians have been bearing a pain you should never have had to bear again, and you are feeling fear.
Now remember, that's only 6 weeks since the October 7 massacre. Things had not got out of hand in Gaza. I mean, reprisals had started.
As the conflict continues, anti-Semitism is on the rise.
The Prime Minister went to the Holocaust Museum and he said, I will not let it gain as much as a foothold in this country.
Australia will always denounce it and reject it utterly.
So he did give an undertaking, and I think we can safely say now it's gained a lot more than a foothold. Again, there's just this firmly held belief within that community and people who support the Jewish community that the government didn't do all it could to stop it getting a foothold.
So there's anger about a failure to address anti-Semitism, but Phil, there's also calls for an inquiry into the failure of intelligence services.
Which I think is standard. I suspect they were going to do that anyhow, Lisa. So we know Mike Burgess, the head of ASIO, and the Home Affairs Minister, Tony Burke, has also confirmed that the younger of the two terrorists had been on the ASIO watch list.
There were people who were within ASIO's sites, and you always go through everybody who they might be associating with.
Because of his association with ISIS elements in 2019.
At that time, he did not have an ideology or a motivation that matched those other people.
They looked at him for 6 months, but then concluded that he didn't pose an immediate threat. And look, in defence of ASIO, there's thousands of people on that list.
In the years that followed, that changed.
But, you know, more alarmingly, the fact him and his old man, as we now know, visited the Philippines just a month or so before the attacks, that no red flag was raised. I think it's a legitimate inquiry as to why that wasn't the case. You don't go to the Philippines for a lot of reasons, and one of them is for terrorist training. You can sort of put all the pieces together now retrospectively. It stood out, but we need to know why it wasn't picked up at the time.
And so what is the federal government actually doing?
They're clearly on the back foot on this. It's illustrative that no one is defending them. Right? There's a lot of criticism. It's predominantly coming from outside of the Jewish community. It's predominantly coming from conservative political circles, but I think it's also illustrative that there's no one defending them. Not even their own people have gone quiet. You know, the first night they really didn't know what to do. Now we're talking about changes to gun laws, possibly accelerating the recommendations from the Siegel Review into anti-Semitism, but other than that, it's more an exercise in management.
The National Cabinet agreement is to consider options including limiting the number of firearms you can have even if you're licensed, not having those gun licenses be indefinite, so periodically having to renew them so that if there are new facts, like someone being radicalised, that's a chance to take it off them. Considering the intelligence, not just criminal convictions, but whether intelligence agencies have any concerns about you as a way to block you getting the gun, and also possibly requiring Australian citizenship in order to be licensed to have a gun. The New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns, and the WA Premier are leading that work, and New South Wales Parliament could be recalled even before Christmas to start legislating some of those initiatives.
It is about harmonising those laws. If you look at South Australia, those laws pretty much already exist in South Australia. You can't have a gun licence for, I think it's reviewed every 2 years and stuff, so it's a case of some states having to catch up with others. How the government emerges from this, Lisa, could prove to be the biggest test of Anthony Albanese's leadership, certainly since the federal election and possibly since he's been Prime Minister.
A new true crime podcast you need to hear to believe.
I need police right now. I've just stabbed and broken into my house.
2 men dead at the hands of a teenager, and almost every moment recorded.
Please,
Don't move. Put the knife down.
I was just trying to help her.
What happened at Alba Beach was as horrific as it was baffling.
There's so much contradiction. We should know more than we know.
I'm Adam Hegarty. I'll take you inside one of the country's most confusing investigations in this exclusive 60 Minutes podcast.
Ambulance, police, inquest, a domino effect of failures. It's killing us.
I'm not a police officer anymore. I can speak more freely.
Alba Beach, Death at the Door, wherever you get your podcasts.
We're talking about the Bondi terror attack that left 16 people dead, dozens wounded, and a country in shock. Phil, you've just said that how Albanese responds will be the defining test of his prime ministership. There's a lot of anger out there. What can he do to turn this around, do you think?
I don't think there's a simple answer to that, Lisa, other than to sort of listen, show a bit of humility and sort of chart a way forward. We've talked about, sort of further tightening gun laws. I remember vividly Port Arthur. I remember vividly reporting on that afterwards. This is very different. There's some signature differences. Port Arthur was a lunatic, a psychotic, murderous lunatic. I'm not even going to mention his name, who murdered 35 people in cold blood using semi-automatic and I think automatic weapons. There was no political motivation. There was no religious motivation. It didn't invoke terrorism. It didn't invoke, debates about immigration. It didn't invoke allegations of a failure of government action or anything like that. It was just a hideous event that galvanised the entire nation like you wouldn't believe. And it was a no-brainer. What Howard did was a no-brainer. I mean, there was a lot of resistance from the gun lobby, but there was overwhelming political support to do what he did. He had bipartisan support. In the day after the massacre, he went down there with then opposition leader Kim Beazley and the Democrats leader Cheryl Kernot. It was a national moment. This isn't the same as that, because this is a politically, religiously, motivated terrorist attack that is causing divisions and anger and blame, as we've already discussed. And it's also resulted in cynicism because, Albanese going back to the well, if you like, and saying, well, we'll tighten the gun laws.
The nation's leaders have agreed to toughen gun laws and tighten gun ownership after last night's attack in Bondi.
I think everyone's happy to see gun laws tightened.
Licences should not be in perpetuity.
We're long overdue a review because things have got a bit woolly since the Howard bans, but there's also a lot of cynicism that he's looking for a distraction from his own failure on that, including from John Howard himself, the architect of those 96 reforms. So it doesn't have that same sense of, national sort of action and pride and let's do this. This is principally a problem of ideology and anti-Semitism rather than actually guns, whereas in 1996, it was the availability in society of these hideous weapons that should only ever be in the hands of the military that were really the problem.
Paul, this is also a test for the New South Wales Labor government. Premier Chris Minns has been front and centre this week. He's been visiting heroes in hospital, as did Albanese. He says that he's going to recall State Parliament to pass new gun regulations before Christmas. Do you think he's under the same pressure as Albanese, or it's different?
Different. I would say he is less politically vulnerable on anti-Semitism, but more vulnerable on guns. So members of the Jewish community are a lot less critical of Chris Minns' response to anti-Semitism. They feel that his rhetoric has been very strong on it from the start. And, for example, the opposition leader, Kelly Sloan, critical of Anthony Albanese's handling of that issue, but not Chris Minns. So less political pressure on anti-Semitism, but possibly more on guns because, the number of guns, out in the community, including, in suburban areas, has been creeping up over time. Those laws are a state responsibility, and Labor has been, cooperating with the shooters, fishers and farmers in New South Wales Parliament. They initially supported a hunting bill that party had put forward that would have broadened gun ownership.
Okay.
And, Sloan, when I spoke to her, said that, we need consistency from the government. So chipping them slightly for having played footsie with this minor party that wants to liberalise gun regulation earlier in the term. I think Minns is also less vulnerable on the agency's failure. So, New South Wales Police, obviously there were not enough police there, but why were there not more police? Because of lack of intelligence that there was a threat. And that goes back to, why did ASIO not know about the Philippines trip? Why was he able to get the gun license in 2023 after his son had been investigated by ASIO for an association with a member of Islamic State in 2019? Those failures seem more like intelligence failures of the federal agencies like ASIO and less like the New South Wales.
The state government responsibility.
Yes.
Phil, can we talk about the heroes? Because I feel like the narrative could have been very different if we didn't have Ahmed al-Ahmed, a Syrian Muslim, wrestling one of the gunmen to the ground. Who are the heroes in the story and how important are they to the recovery?
Well, obviously, Ahmed al-Ahmed is the man of the moment, and it helps that he's a Muslim, because it helps to dispel, what's coming on the back of this in terms of immigration and what's already started, that not all Muslims are bad people. In fact, the pin-up hero of the tragedy was a Muslim man. But I don't think we should forget about that Jewish couple at all, that tried to wrest the guns off the terrorists when they were getting out of their car. They both died, paid for it in their lives. 69-year-old man and his 61-year-old wife. They deserve every bit as much praise as Ahmed al-Ahmed, whatever honours he's going to be bestowed with, and they should be of the highest order, should also be awarded posthumously to the Jewish couple. Yeah, if you saw two blokes getting out of a car with an ISIS flag on the windscreen with long-arm rifles, I mean, what would you do? Would you run, call the police, or try and grab them? I think most of us would do one of the first two options.
Best of Australian culture on display at the same time as the worst, obviously, and sort of an echo of the Bondi Junction Westfield stabbing, where a lot of people stepped in to try and disarm the perpetrators from the start.
So a final question for you both. Do you think the Bondi terror attack will further divide Australia and make it a more dangerous place, or will it bring us closer together?
Well, I think that it's going to result in some very sensible changes to gun laws, and I was surprised at any suggestions doubting Anthony Albanese's bona fides on that was a distraction or a diversion. I think his political opponents can keep the pressure on about needing to respond to anti-Semitism without suggesting that the gun crackdown is anything but a good faith attempt to make Australians more safe. I think that people will be more safe if those things are enacted. In terms of the longer term social division and exposing the ugliness of anti-Semitism and possibly prompting reprisals, there were messages going around on social media calling for, revenge bashings in Cronulla on a particular date. And, Mal Lanyon, the New South Wales Police Commissioner, and the Premier, Chris Minns, had to warn, we will come down on people like a ton of bricks if anyone attempts anything like that. I think that indicates that, yes, we are more divided and that Australia is a more dangerous place as a result.
My ultimate fear is it is going to leave us more divided than we already are, Lisa, because of the sort of polar opposite views of what's happened over the last 2 years. People don't want this stuff brought here, right? They can watch what's going overseas and form their own opinion, but the vast majority don't want this stuff brought here. And I thought most telling, was in terms of our collective reaction to what happened was on Monday when 20,000 people wanted to donate blood. Normally on a Monday the Red Cross gets 5,000 people. That's people trying to do something. I want to do something to help. I hate what's happened and I want to do something to help. That does reflect still, I think, the majority sort of cultural instinct of Australian people of one of fundamental decency. I just hope that those people who thought it permissible to use such languages in public spaces from the river to the sea now actually understand that those words can have consequences and they're just much more judicious, and that people manage to understand that if you find the actions of a foreign government abhorrent, it doesn't give you the right to attack an Australian Jew. Limit your anger to that of the foreign government, not some poor kid trying to go to school or patting a goat on a Bondi beach. And you can see with the way the politics on this has gone immediately. I mean, on Sunday night, Lisa, I think it was within about half an hour, by about 8:30, a couple of hours after the shootings had been reported, Pauline Hanson was on the front foot on immigration and stuff like this. And don't forget, before this happened, the Liberal Party was going to release its immigration policy this week, which was not going to be racially specific, just about getting the numbers down altogether. But the reason they brought forward that policy release was because of the pressure coming from One Nation, because immigration is a top 5 pressure now on government, and it's a top 5 issue of concern on voters. So I was talking to the Liberals Tuesday, and they were saying we're not sure they're going to release it now this week because it would just be seen as a little bit too exploitative. But I suspect when the funerals are over and the media moves on, this is going to turbocharge that debate, and I don't think it's going to be a pretty debate.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
No worries, Lisa.
Thank you for listening to The Fin. I'm Lisa Murray, with Financial Review political editor Phillip Coorey and New South Wales political correspondent Paul Karp joining the podcast today. A special thank you to Edmund Tadros and the AFR newsroom for supplying audio for this episode. If this episode has raised any issues for you, you can call Lifeline on 131114. The Fin is produced by Mandy Coulin and Alex Gow. Fiona Buffini is head of premium content. Our theme is by Alex Gow. Send this episode to a friend as it helps others find us, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. For more stories about markets, business and power, subscribe to the Financial Review at afr.com/subscribe. See you next week.
The Australian Financial Review.
A new true crime podcast you need to hear to believe.
I need police right now. I'm just started broken into my house.
2 men dead at the hands of a teenager, and almost every moment recorded.
Please, don't move. Put the knife down.
I was just trying to help her.
What happened at Alba Beach was as horrific as it was baffling.
There's so much contradiction. We should know more than we know.
I'm Adam Hegarty. I'll take you inside one of the country's most confusing investigations in this exclusive 60 Minutes podcast.
Ambulance, police, inquest, a domino effect of failures. It's killing us.
I'm not a police officer anymore. I can speak more freely.
Alba Beach, Death at the Door, wherever you get your podcasts.